Hello, everyone. Welcome to our UETH weekly workshop. UETH, short for University of Ethereum, is a decentralized global educational platform initiated by the Ethereum community. My name is Tina Dai, and I am your host for the evening. I've been an early stage venture investor for the past 5 years, most recently focused on crypto. And prior to that, I got my career started in product and strategy. For tonight, we have some really special guests. First, we have Rahilla Zafar, who is Web3 Partnerships Director at Stability AI, the vanguard of open source AI models. We also have Simon Hudson, who is lead DAO operator at Botto, an autonomous artist governed by a DAO. So in this session titled Exploring the Convergence of Crypto and AI, we will cover the synergies of crypto and AI, some of the real world impact that it could have on industry, and deep dive on some projects to give you a sense of what people are working on in this space. So for the first part of the session, we will start off with a talk from Rahilla, and then we'll move to a Q&A with Simon and Rahilla to brainstorm with the broader audience about what's possible at the intersection of crypto and AI. But as a reminder, this conversation is recorded. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the general channel on our Discord or drop it in the YouTube comments. Any questions we don't address on this call, on this workshop, we will address asynchronously. But here at UETH, our intention is to inspire our students with real life examples of what's possible so they can jump into projects and learn by doing. So as you hear the conversation tonight, I challenge each and every single one of you to reflect on how you can make a tangible difference using the knowledge you're gaining today. So for our speaker tonight, we have Rahilla, who is our topic expert. Rahilla is incredibly inspiring to me and a great friend. She has produced some films on Ethereum, was ex-Consensus. She's also an advisor to VCs and startups in the crypto space. So she's done a lot of stuff. She is now the Web3 Partnerships Director at Stability AI.
Yes, so it's a real pleasure to be able to work at this intersection of crypto and AI, because it's two areas that I feel like it's a great time just to be alive and in tech, because it's innovation that was never possible before, especially when we're wanting to have a more equitable world.
While we figure out the Discord part, maybe we'll move on to Simon, who is our other guest tonight. Simon is a DAO operator at Botto, which is one of the most renowned AI artists in the space, governed and operated via crypto infrastructure. And so Simon, would love to see if you could share a bit more about your background and what led you to Botto.
Sure. Yeah, Tina, thanks so much for having me. Really great to be here. Background, I used to work at a private research lab called Element AI, which is founded by Yasho Bengio, one of the pioneers of deep learning here in Montreal. We did a lot of work. I was just joined back in 2017 and did a lot of work in AI literacy, really trying to teach companies and groups and organizations about AI and kind of the new dynamics of this type of software. But back then got really interested in the arts as a way of attention to capturing the magic and kind of the inspiration around this new technology, while also drawing attention to the process, where a lot of marketing just kind of stops at it's magic, it works. It doesn't talk about the enormous amount of human labor it takes to make these things work. And at the same time, we were doing it in AI governance and looking at ways to how people how to group each other around how to align AI, and those two things and my interest into Web3 is to work around social coordinating, as well as a place to work on this amazing AI art project. Which I'm going to start going into kind of all the details. I don't want to make my introduction 10 minutes. Yeah, it was really kind of capturing my attention at this intersection, a place to work on community governance and specifically around AI alignment that caught my attention.
Awesome. Thank you, Simon. We'll now go into Rahilla's talk. She will give about a 10 to 15 minute talk about her work at Stability AI, as well as the synergies between the two technologies. I think she will now take, since I interrupted her in her last audio, would take some time to talk about her crypto background and how that led her to Stability AI. She'll also take some time to share the importance of the convergence of these two technologies and give us real examples of what some projects are doing in this space. And so I'm going to bring Rahilla back up and have her redo her intro and then flow right into the deck.
Yeah, so my background was I studied public policy and I did a lot of work throughout the United States around improving education and economic opportunities. And then I had the opportunity to work in international development in places like Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then I also spent time traveling all over the Middle East. I co-authored 2 books that you highlighted, Arab Women Rising and The Internet of Women. So it was fascinating for me to see there was just so much impact when people were empowered just through things like Facebook and Instagram. Like there were so many small businesses, women in the Arab world, for example, were creating that just started out on those platforms that actually became brick and mortar businesses that really scaled. And when I learned about Ethereum in 2015, I got really excited just because of the ability to provide microtransactions, to be able to work across borders, being able to really improve finance through DeFi and stablecoin adoption and so many things. So to me, in order to build a more equitable world, I really saw it within the blockchain ecosystem and particularly Ethereum at the time. And I was really, really excited just over the past few years to see Stability AI really blossom and be part of that ethos of open source technologies and be similarly mission driven to the early blockchain and Ethereum ecosystem as an example, and of course like other new blockchain ecosystems that have come about in terms of really wanting to provide public goods to empower society. So that's why on many levels, I think that this is such a powerful combination and the next 5 years are going to be very, very exciting for humanity. Yeah, so really briefly, most people know Stability AI because of our product Stable Diffusion. And Stability AI is the leader in open source generative AI models across multiple modalities. So we have models in audio, image, language, and video. In fact, today we just released Stable Video Diffusion. I think earlier this week, we released a brand new audio model. So definitely go and check those out. I think that it was great to see because in our worlds and the crypto AI ecosystem, we're always talking about decentralization and the importance of it. And everything that happened with OpenAI, back in late November, really got mainstream people talking about it in terms of centralization versus decentralization, particularly in AI. And this is such powerful technology that it was really great to see people even outside of our ecosystem starting to understand that shouldn't this be available to everyone and not just in a closed system, and shouldn't this infrastructure be open source, and shouldn't everyone have the ability to contribute, and it's not just controlled by a small group of tech people like in the model that we've seen in the Web2 world. And then I love this quote by Ali Yahya from Andreessen Horowitz, where he talks about the vision behind crypto intersecting with AI aims to distribute value fairly among contributors, including those providing compute-powered data or machine learning models. And this is something that I think is particularly important because as you look at developing nations, for example, or even smaller businesses and enterprises that, anywhere in the world, it's not easy to access compute power. And this, intersection really, really democratizes that, and also the ability to, contribute data, in addition to using the models, I think is really exciting. And the other thing that we're so committed to at Stability AI is, really making sure that these models are multilingual, that they're really represented by, humanity versus just English-speaking countries or small, contributors and small contributors that don't really represent the world. And I think that the beautiful thing that I always appreciated about, the blockchain ecosystem as an example is you see in countries like Argentina and Turkey, there's such incredible developer communities, because these are countries that had crazy inflation, and now like the rest of the world had to experience that. And I think, in a similar way, it's a real pleasure to be at a company at Stability AI because they really look at, we really look at our products in terms of serving all demographics and creating opportunities for everybody. And you can I'm going to go into some examples, but you can see centralized systems versus decentralized systems. So Stability AI models, distributed cloud compute, which a lot of people are working on right now. I think a future where, in the AI space, there's payments through crypto rails, there's identity through on-chain verifiers. I think that, there's decentralized governments and decentralized trading. And I think as we go on, I can kind of show you examples in this realm. Yeah, and I think this is a great slide that you added, Tina, in terms of just touching on the areas where, in terms of security, distributed computing power, privacy, authenticity. I mean, these are things that crypto really brings to AI that I think would be not possible for closed source AI to be able to do. This is a little bit hard to read, so I'll kind of walk through. I think in some of my examples, I can share things in terms of decentralized interest, smart contracts, decentralized data marketplaces, and like the benefits of things like decentralized networks. And I think, as we look at the different sectors that are going to be, that are being transformed by AI, I mean, imagine if you're in healthcare and you have a research model you've been working on, around, cancer or autism or all these important things. And then all of a sudden, if it's closed source, something can happen where you lose access to it. And also, I think that the innovation is so much more when, through distributed network technologies that blockchain brings, it enables so many people around the world, and healthcare as an example, to be able to contribute their research and data. And I think some of the problems, as an example, in healthcare is, you're only getting information from a small demographic of people that leaves out like much of the world. And there are 3 use cases that I'll share in terms of, some things that I think are interesting in the ecosystem, in addition to some things that we've been exploring at Stability AI. So Giza technology, in my opinion, they're the very best platform enabling verifiable ML inference. They're just an incredible team to work with. And Dan Sickles, he's an award-winning filmmaker. He's won the Sundance Grand Jury Prize before. He's making a feature film called New Here that's really incredible about the crypto art scene. And elements of that film are using Stable Diffusion. He's been working with the artist Claire Silver that I'm sure many of you have heard of. And in addition to that, Man with a Movie Camera was a really iconic film that came out in 1929. It was considered a masterpiece and really at the forefront in terms of cinematic innovation. So he decided to recreate it using models from Stability AI in addition to that, he's going to be working with Giza technology, so it'll be the first major art project to be able to have verifiable ML. And then in addition to that, we introduced him to the Filecoin team. So it'll be decentralized storage as well. So this is just an example of like the future of film where you're able to prove attribution and have something end-to-end that's truly open source. And then Water Lily is an incredible project. It's from the LilyPad team, and they're a company that are being incubated by Protocol Labs. And what Water Lily does is it allows original creators of artwork to be rewarded with micropayments whenever a user selects their style to create a new stable diffusion artwork from a prompt. It leverages the benefits for decentralized ML models and verifiable off-chain computation. So I think that's another thing too, where it's possible now to do a lot of these things off-chain and then verify it on-chain when needed. And I think that that's a great innovation. And I kind of love the thought process of, all right, let's do as much as we can off-chain, and then it can, elements of it can be on-chain when needed, just because of all of the compute costs. And then lastly, the leading DAO is MakerDAO. As many of you guys know, they're the leading decentralized finance protocol. They created the DAI stablecoin. If you go to powerhouse.inc, so it's super interesting what they're doing. 2 years ago, they dissolved their foundation, and they're entirely run by their DAO. For those not familiar, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. So all the voting rights in terms of what happens is done by their token holders. So what they're wanting to do is really make DAOs super scalable and leverage OpenAI to improve DAO governance and operations. And they see this as not only shaping the future of open and decentralized organizations. Well, they really see this as something that's important, not just for the crypto ecosystem and that other protocols, can adopt, and these will be open models that they can, that they will be able to use. They're also seeing this as potentially even a crossover use case, that a nonprofit or any type of organization can see this as a more transparent and efficient way to run a company. So we're working with them in terms of AI agents, and then also, we're exploring ways to work together in terms of, how can we create reputation systems? Like we're talking about combining models like our Stable Chat with a 3B LLM model that we have. So it's just been super fascinating. And then in terms of more things in DeFi, I would check out a company called hopscotch.trade, and they have such an amazing, vision of things that they're working on in terms of the future of DeFi. Like as an example, I'll tell them that I want to do this action like with my voice, and then it'll automatically go and, execute everything. So I never have to touch my MetaMask wallet or log into any protocol. So I think that the future is really bright, and I think this convergence of OpenAI models will really make it more efficient as well, and it can be properly run. So I think that OpenAI models are such an essential thing to make this decentralized future that we all, dream about, like beyond just the small community that it's part of now, something that's like can be, used by like 1 billion people or more, as an example.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a very dense topic, I think, to cover crypto and AI. But I think what is really exciting, effectively, if I were to summarize what you're saying, is like right now, AI is like a very closed loop system. It's centralized. It's owned by a few number of folks, like OpenAI, like Google, just anyone with really big data sets, AI models. And what crypto adds onto AI is this ability to make a more transparent and open framework. So open sourcing all these AI models where anybody who's contributing to it can also sort of have some ownership against this model. And crypto is the framework that allows for the distribution of ownership and the openness, and hence the open source models. That's in contrast to the centralized models that exist today. And I think, like, conversely, like the part that it gets confusing is, like, I think AI also brings a lot to crypto, right? Because right now crypto is very limited in terms of block space. And so in order to bring AI into smart contract functionality, there's a relationship that goes both ways, and there's a lot of companies that are sort of working on bringing crypto into this AI age as well, meaning having smart contract functionality that's automated. Cool. So I know you wanted to play the quick demo. So before we move on to Simon, Eureka, our producer, has the man with the movie camera tab that he can now demo for us. Maybe you can voice over this real fast.
Yeah, so you can mint an NFT from Super Rare if you're interested, and this is just an example of what it'll look like. And then he plans to release, your full-fledged version of the movie, I think, at the end of January. But I think that just visually, it's stunning, and I think it's incredible to me that he was able to create this.
So thank you for that talk. So we're now going to move over to Simon's section, where he will share more about his work on Botto. So as a reminder, Botto is an AI artist, and it leverages a crypto token as well as a DAO to run its governance. So we already covered sort of a breadth of what's possible with crypto and AI. And so moving onto Simon's section, we wanted you to hear more in detail about how this particular project is leveraging AI and crypto, and sort of the philosophy of why they went this direction with merging a autonomous artist with crypto frameworks. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Simon, and we'll take it from there. I'll add your slides to the stage as well.
So, and yeah, I think I'm really interested to get into the conversation because as much as there's been a lot of really exciting stuff that has happened, we're really just at the beginning. I think a lot of the new possibilities are coming online and being realized. There are still things that I think are far beyond our imaginations of what's possible. So, and certainly Botto's kind of an early scratching of the surface, and even a lot of Botto's future is kind of going to be exploring this unfounded territory. So anyways, so I gave a little bit about myself before. I was an AI company. In general, I have kind of a very odd, strange, kind of meandering background, you could say. But I'd sum up a lot of it in terms of a lot of science and tech communications, multimedia production, and got into the AI world, got into working on these questions of AI literacy. How do you give people the ability to understand how this technology works such that they can exercise their agency in it? And that was tied up with a lot of our work before around governance, around responsible development of AI systems. I also have a long background in community governance organizations since I was a teenager, and in decentralized organizations that aren't on the internet. So when I found Web3 was this and in particular this project Botto, it was just this perfect intersection of things, and I think everyone's here, I imagine, has heard about crypto, heard about or NFTs or some aspect of it, and they're interested in looking to get their hands dirty maybe, and that was me in 2021, looking for something to go and do, because I was reading about it and I got it, but I still didn't get it until I could do it. And I was looking for a project, and there were quite a few. There's a lot of noise to sort through. There's a lot of projects that it's just kind of like they've just created an NFT for the sake of selling NFTs. Or launch a token for the sake of launching a token, and hoping it goes to the moon. And that I wasn't interested in that. I was really interested in exploring kind of these new dynamics, new ways of organizing, new ways of collaborating, new ways of creating markets that yield something valuable and maybe possible before, but not necessarily possible at scale and easily accessible. And so when I found Botto, it was really that perfect intersection. And so what's the next slide? Okay, so Botto, I've been talking about this machine artist. Tina said this decentralized autonomous artist. Botto is part of kind of a long history of in humanity of trying to automate intelligence, and even goes back to the ancient Greek mythology of Talos, this kind of machine of war. But even more recently, and especially in the industrial age, this idea that man could kind of create sentience, could have kind of this divine ability to create life. And we've been trying to do that with machines ever since. Come along computers and making computer art, and I thinking about how to automate the creative process. And I work with an artist named Mario Klingemann, who's been doing AI art for a couple decades, real pioneer with modern AI art. And he's been playing with this idea of how to automate the creative process. And that's been possible for some time, at least in terms of you have text image models. Stable Diffusion, which Rahilla mentioned earlier, is a text image model. You write text, it creates an image. And there's text generation models. You can have it generate text, you plug it into the text image model, it'll generate images. And even earlier iterations of things like Deep Dream, where you just kind of turn it on and it starts to recursively see things in images, and then you get way beyond the image that was originally there, and you're in totally new latent creative space. But the challenge there is how these machines can have a sense of what is art, of what is of culture, of feedback from an audience, that doesn't then turn it back into a tool, right? A human could design these systems and have very, very tightly designed printers, and it would very much have their touch on it. How could you kind of keep the agents, or the machine agents, space and agency open enough that it kind of maintains this central role of leadership, while also being able to get that feedback? And there were some experiments. Klingemann had done one in an exhibition where people could come through, give their feedback to this machine artist, and would create art. But the problem was that it was still limited in time and space to that exhibition. The exhibition ended, the machine artist ended. And the idea of thinking of a machine could potentially, live on forever, at least as long as the internet and electricity existed. How could you create this machine and also create a system for inviting that feedback in an autonomous way that wasn't dependent on that time and space of the exhibition? And so the thinking was, as laid out by Simon de Riviere, who's written about decentralized autonomous artists, said, you could create an economic substrate that would be its own autonomous force, sort of the invisible hand, incentivizing people to come and give feedback. And that kind of orchestration, maintaining and protecting the agency of the core author of the artist, the core authorship of this machine artist. And so along comes crypto, and along comes the ability to make a token, to make your own kind of microeconomy, and of course NFTs as well, offering a very, very healthy market for digital art. So this machine artist could go and sell art. It could use those proceeds to feed this economy. It could use this token system to manage that economy, to give people the ability to govern that economy, govern the artist, and ways to organize around that was this concept of DAOs, which we've heard a couple times now. And I understand there's an earlier workshop that talked about DAOs. And so all of that comes together to offer this infrastructure and this architecture with which we could create and launch Botto. So just to kind of give you the run through of how it works here, there's the art engine, which is the machine artist itself. And also just, you know, I always try and caveat, like I use this metaphorical anthropomorphic language to personify this artist, and keep in mind it's metaphor. It's a machine, it's not sentient, but it does have this, we've given it this agency, and we could see that as anthropomorphic or maybe something else. And I think that's what we're getting at here is this a new way to create? Is this yielding a new kind of dynamic that wasn't really possible before? And I think that's what we have accomplished, and that's what we're starting to see. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So the Botto's art engine is three main components. You have the prompt generator. It creates prompts and it runs those prompts through open source generative models like Stable Diffusion. In fact, we use several versions. We use Stable Diffusion 1.5, 2.1, and XL. And through that process, it generates 20,000 images a week. And out of that, there's a taste model that then filters down the best 350, and best roughly being defined as kind of what is art. Now, Botto started out with kind of a very random sense of that. It was given a very, 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 very broad idea of like, this is what a prompt is to get an image. And it started generating random words and phrases. And the taste model was a very random selection to start. So in the first week of Botto's life, this was October 2021, it presented these 350 works to the DAO and voted on them. And only the most popular piece was then minted as a true and final artwork of Botto's. That minting process being kind of this publishing of the final canonical artwork. That was put on auction on a digital, on the same place that the AI movie was on, Super Rare. That was auctioned off, and those proceeds go back to the DAO. 50% goes straight to the voters. The other 50% goes to a treasury, which the voters collectively govern. All of this is in crypto, so it's all on chain. You can see the transactions. You can see how much is in the treasury. And then the voting goes back to train the prompt generator and the taste model. And that process runs every week. Botto is developing an aesthetic through that process over time. It's been happening for a little over 2 years now. Botto's generated over $3 million in sales. And so that has fueled, and this happened kind of from the first sale. There's a huge sale that kickstarted this economy and has allowed it to run this autonomous way. And that drives this very powerful incentive alignment where people want to vote better. They want to govern this artist in a way. And we liken it to it sort of being a young prodigy, and where it's you could say mentors or foster parents or managers, and we're helping manage this artist's career, and everybody's incentivized to have that career be very successful. And just to be clear, you know, that creation process, nobody edits the prompts, nobody edits the images, but there are still lots of human hands involved. There's a human hand in minting. There's a lot of centralization still, right? The voting, anybody can buy the Botto token and vote. So you can go on, it's on Uniswap, you can go and buy the token on market, and that's your governance power. So your governance power is based off of how much stake you have, and that's your incentive alignment. But there's still a lot of core contributors who drive a lot of things and get a lot of stuff done and facilitate a lot of things. And so what we're really doing is kind of a process of progressive decentralization. There's a lot of great new technology coming on to decentralize all of Botto's stack, and also to fully decentralize operations. But it's not a transactions protocol, right? Like Ethereum. It is a it is in part an economic and financial protocol, but it is also very much a social and cultural one. And decentralizing that is a very long process that you're dealing with people. And it takes a lot to understand what is it we're decentralizing, what are our operations, what are our values. And then comes the second question of how do you decentralize in a way that makes sense? Decentralization doesn't look the same everywhere you go. And it's an ideal. There's always going to be elements of centralization, even within decentralized components. And so it's a really fun and complex process because there is so much to understand. But it's been really amazing to, one, just as a project that anybody can come and get involved. And it's a great way to learn and understand how these different systems come together and work, and you build your agency to govern not just this system, but I think to better understand the larger AI governance conversation happening in the world. We're trying to answer impossible questions about what AI should or shouldn't do. And this is a microcosm of that. We're just asking what is art? And that's what everyone's kind of governing here. But we're asking these big questions, and it's really hard to get a seat at the table. Not just because it's largely dominated by a few companies, but also because it's very difficult to understand enough, not that you have to understand everything perfectly, but understand enough how the technology works to understand what the levers are to create, and in order to exercise our agency, and to defer to, say, more local knowledge. And on top of that, to understand that we can share in the value that AI creates because it's dependent on us to create that value. Botto is totally dependent on this large network of people. And it's just because it's a decentralized network, it sort of is able to maintain that more autonomous authorship and role. And, I think for the sake of the concept and the project, we'll push towards something more autonomous and maybe more free of that human input. But we all get to participate in that discussion as we go. And at the end of the day, it's an art project where we can seek out kind of different paths. Botto could be forked, right? It could be forked in lots of different versions, whether things are more human controlled or less human controlled. And we can run those experiments and all learn and benefit from that. So there's a lot I could go and, I spend every day on this. I love it deeply, but I'll cut myself off.
Thank you for going through that. I always love hearing you talk about Botto because I think it is truly one of the most interesting conversations about experimenting human input on AI. And I think you talked about, looking at the state of AI and looking at the different projects and the different progressions in AI and starting to automate more and more of Botto. And so I think this will be a good segue to maybe hear you and Rahilla talk more about the state of AI, but the state of AI and crypto, I mean. And before that, I think we're going to flow into the last portion of our workshop where we will have you sort of have more of a conversation and then answer some questions from our community. We have a student who wants to ask a live question, and I'm getting a lot of pings. And so I have some questions pulled from the community as well. And so maybe let's start on the discussion of the state of AI, and then I'll start bringing up questions from the community as well as from our students. So I think the biggest thing that we wanted to sort of cover in this conversation is I would love for you to all give a sense of how new things are in AI and crypto, right? Because we talked about it as if it's such a dense topic and there's so much happening, but we'll love to know where we are in the grand scheme of things for crypto and AI.
I can give some brief examples on the protocol front. So for example, just from conversations I've been having with the Graph protocol, I mentioned MakerDAO, even protocols such as Tezos and Optimism. I think they've all been, I think everyone's been thinking about how to incorporate it. And I think a few have really been integrating it, and they've taken certain things as far as they can in terms of natural languages as an example. And then in the MakerDAO example that I mentioned, in a lot of the experimentations they were doing around Powerhouse, and they've been realizing just over the past few months that we need more robust customized models, as an example, or they're looking at things like one of our fine-tuning models that's in private preview that we've been able to, give people access to, including some of these protocols. So it's just been really interesting from that perspective in terms of how AI can not only draw new users, but then also attract a whole, like a larger developer community as well, and make it a lot more efficient and quicker to innovate.
Cool. And Simon, would love to sort of hear, as you look around for solutions to continue automating Botto, what are some things that feel really exciting to you, or what are some of the barriers in this continual decentralization?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally in like the last week, there's been an explosion of conversations for decentralized AI architecture. And I think some big funding rounds were closed, in addition to the OpenAI drama where Rahilla had that tweet from Andrej Karpathy. It's like, I think I'm ready for decentralized AI. So I have a feeling like I'm starting to have a lot more conversations with a lot more providers than I was before. And, just everyone's coming out of the woodwork with stuff that it's like, I didn't even know this stuff was fully ready yet. And there's some more scratching to do to see what is really ready. I think that we're in a space where there's a lot of theory crafting about the possibilities, and it's amazing to see, and I think it's really great. It's also really good for fundraising, and then you get into how does this actually work? And from our perspective with Botto, we're personally really careful about what do we take a step forward on, because we don't ever want to kind of add agency to Botto and then suddenly you reel it back in. It's like a kid growing up. Like, you kind of want to give them a steady amount of new freedoms. You pull them back, it's like you're going to have a pretty bad conflict, and it's not great for their sense of agency. But it really are these questions of like, is this working really well right now? Can this be fully automated? And some of this stuff, it's like it mixes into like what the AI technology is ready for. Can you produce really amazing outputs without without human intervention? Or are there these kind of outputs that still require a lot of handcrafting to get right? And then you talk about, is that ready to go and become immutable? And there are things where you can take components of it and make them on-chain, open source, immutable, composable, and just like data, for instance. And there's a lot of great work around making data available while still keeping it private and secure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's all this possibility, but you really got to dig into it. It ends up being like, this piece is ready, this piece is ready. The full chain, not quite.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm going to ask a couple questions from our Discord, and then I'm going to conclude on a question from a live question from a student. But one of the questions that we had from the community is, how do you envision the role of AI in creating and sustaining DAOs that are aligned with the values and goals of their members and stakeholders? And I think this would be a really interesting question to answer, since Rahilla, you talked about Powerhouse, and then Simon, you're obviously decentralizing a DAO effectively.
Yeah, maybe really briefly, what I love about Rune's vision, the founder of MakerDAO, is he really feels that, apart from Tether, you have to be English speaking to use DeFi. And he really has the vision of, it needs to be in Turkish, Portuguese, and all these different languages. So I feel the multilingual and cultural component, not just to something like DeFi, but also the DAOs and the models that we create to run them need to have that cultural sensitivity. And also it allows the control and governance to be multicultural and not just, something that only English speakers can partake in.
Yeah. I mean, we're usually thinking about like, how can we bring AI into crypto? And this is kind of the opposite question of well, the semantics of it are weird, but you get what I mean of like, just, we need translation, or what are the scale issues of DAOs where, you're in a Discord server and there's so much noise to sort through. It is a really big job and time suck just to follow multiple threads that frankly aren't organized very well. And there really isn't a great way of doing it, like without adding a whole lot of labor. And so I was just like, I just saw this feature on not on my Discord server, unfortunately, on somebody else's, but it had these like automated summaries, and it was kind of auto detecting threads of conversation within a single, if everyone's in Discord, you've been in the general channel and there's like however many different conversations overlapping each other. And it's doing this kind of auto sorting. And so I think that like that kind of synthesis of information and navigation of information solves one of these big problems in DAOs that people found, which was like, oh crap, community governance is an absolute time suck to get everyone's opinions and try and make sense of it. And Botto, like there's this particular thing where, I mean, just the art project and like the mission is I don't know if it's practical outside of Botto, but it works really well for us. Where like there's a lot of debates about artistic direction and managerial direction of the artist, and we're working on tutoring a large language model in art history, and we're going to be able to get a lot of creative direction from the artist itself. Right. There's otherwise it's kind of ambiguous, and it's a lot of, whichever opinion is loudest. And so if it's about supporting this autonomous artist and the autonomous artist has a point of view, then suddenly you have creative direction that aligns people very quickly. I don't know if that's what you want when you're trying to align humans and around community goals, because that's a highly manipulable process. But for Botto, it's quite interesting. I think there's solutions where you can have much more limited scope of these chatbots, where they can give kind of much more limited information, or also provide a lot of context, make their summaries very explainable, and that can be really, really useful. And we have some people doing that in our server already in really interesting ways.
Thank you both for those answers. I'm going to move to a live question from our student, Fari, and have her come up to the stage and ask you directly.
Hello there. Thank you so much, Rahilla and Simon. I really enjoyed listening in on this conversation. I'm Fari, and I've been in the Web3 space for about 3 years now. I'm an NFT artist turned community builder, as I co-founded San Diego's first NFT conference called San Diego NFT Con, where we educated and onboarded over 2,000 attendees with diversity and inclusion at the forefront of our ethos. As I represent Y3K, I represent a community of diverse leaders to pave the way to bring access and opportunities to marginalized groups. And University of Ethereum is playing a significant role in our impact, as they're providing resources for me to host local meetups in the San Diego community. I work at a local non-custodial wallet called Edge, which is where I'm reporting from right now, which allows users to have direct control over their private keys, in turn enhancing security and providing ownership of their funds. Now, while there's so much to be excited about the AI-driven solutions in the DeFi space, I would love to hear your perspectives on the risks of them instead.
It's a tough question. We actually had a few questions about risk, and I can expand a bit more too. Like another question that came in was your views on the potential misuse of AI, the impact it might have on the stakeholders, like including the artists, any biased learning from the Web2 world, given the different folks that are, training the models. So we'd love to sort of hear your perspectives on the potential misuse risks of AI.
Simon touched on something interesting earlier in terms of secure information.
Yeah.
So I think that as of now, this is a big problem, like particularly just in really sensitive type of data that you want to have kind of broad inputs, but then at the same time, you have to worry about security. So I'm super excited. I mean, there are some projects that Protocol Labs have been incubating where it actually makes it possible, to have really sensitive data, part of data sets that you couldn't have before, because you're protecting where it's coming from. So I think that that's in the works. And then the other thing that's possible too is, whether you're a research institution or a government entity or an individual person that opted to include your data, in a data set, you could decide that I don't like what they're doing anymore. I was fine with this use case, but I'm not okay with that. And you have the option to remove your data. So I just feel like if this thing can, if when this really, scales properly and goes to the forefront, we're going to have these things in fruition, offering that protection.
Yeah,
I think what terrifies me is all this ends up being, this personal data shouldn't belong or be controlled by OpenAI or Microsoft or Google.
Yeah, I mean, there are tons of risks we could talk about just in AI or just crypto, but kind of trying to keep it at that intersection and to tag along on that, maybe towards something on the solution side, which is, this ability to kind of have custody over your own data and managing those permissions. But there is a real challenge in, that's work. It's a lot of labor. And, you don't necessarily have a lot of negotiating power as an individual data point. And so ideas are, what people might call data unions, or this idea of data trusts, where you can collectivize the data, and in particular with a trust where the fiduciary responsibility is to you, not the company, right? They're negotiating on your behalf and have a legal obligation to negotiate on your in your best interest. And you can choose, maybe there's many trusts to pick from, and you can choose the one you like. And maybe there's an on-chain way of also governing that data trust collectively. But then you can collectivize. You can add leverage, negotiating power, and of course manage those permissions and keep things private, and only reveal them to the only healthcare information for your healthcare provider and the insurance agent. Yeah, I mean, there's all of these things are huge rabbit holes. we're just starting to scratch the surface.
Awesome. Thank you, Fari.
Nice to meet you.
I would love to maybe conclude the conversation, but I think that last question was actually really apt, because it goes back to, Rahilla, your first slide that was like, crypto actually enables this creation of open models, and open models enabled by crypto, like, and the properties of crypto are just so synergistic with AI, right? Because they're almost complete opposites, that there are good checks and balances. And so lots of risks because it's so new, but I think combining the two is probably better than purely a closed loop AI system. But on closing, thank you both for being here today. The last thing I will ask you both to do is to either offer, some words of inspiration for our students who are exploring the intersection of crypto or AI. And inspiration could be any resources they could look at, or even ways to get involved, right? So for instance, Rahilla, would love to hear you talk about the Stability AI membership. And Simon, would love to hear you talk about like what would it look like to join Botto DAO. And so we'd love to hear both of your closing words.
Yeah, really quickly, if you just go to stability.ai, we have a new membership model. So if you're a student or a nonprofit organization, you can experiment with this for free, and I really encourage you to do so. If you need any technical help, my email is just rahilla.zafar@stability.ai. So I'm really accessible. We're going to be doing a lot more things to support entrepreneurs in the space as they. So anyway, I don't want to reveal too much, but we have a lot of cool things in the works. Catering to that crowd you're mentioning too, like
amazing.
Announced in the new year.
Please let me know, and then we'll help you promote it.
Thank you.
Words of encouragement. I literally just got hired through joining a Discord server, and now I co-lead the whole project. So most of my career has been like, I want to get paid to learn about this, and I followed my nose, and it's worked out for me pretty well. And the Web3 ecosystem DAOs, they're all open to contributors. It's just a matter of being curious and showing interest and like take that initiative. The worst thing is the person just asking questions like, man, it's in the docs, go read that. But when people do read that, we pay attention. You're like, man, you've really gotten a sense of this. For Botto, I mean, contributions are open, creating more ways for people to contribute every day. You can pretty much just join the Discord without buying the token. But if you're interested in that, go to botto.com or docs.botto.com. Probably best to go to docs. There's a getting started thing. Even if you don't have a wallet, there's a really easy step-by-step wallet where to go get the token. Come to the Discord. The docs kind of have a bunch of great information about how Botto works, getting into the details of all that. But it's like everybody can vote, can have opinion on art, and we want to hear it. All of that stuff contributes to the energy and the meaning making happening around Botto. So would love to have anybody join. You can find me at Hudson Sims on Twitter. It's Hudson like the bay, Sims like the game word. And if you ever have any more questions, I'm always happy to chat about Botto. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing. And one last thing too, that these are two completely new industries, I guess, new in the sense of where it keeps evolving, and every few months things are changing so drastically. So there's don't be intimidated by any of it. And I think that you just learn through experimenting, and Simon's Discord example was really fantastic. So I think that we're all on a level playing field here, particularly in this intersection. So definitely just, work hard and believe that you can contribute, and you will.
Well, thank you both. I love that parting words of wisdom. I will also be sharing some of the links that you all mentioned in our newsletter that goes out, which recaps this particular workshop session. But thank you both for being with me here today. Y'all are amazing people, and I hope our students were inspired by your conversation.
Thanks, Tina.
Of course. All right. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.